Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a great Tuesday. Tuesday is the day that doesn't seem to get a lot of love, but I think Tuesdays are nice. You get all of the busy work done on Monday, where you have to catch up from stuff over the weekend. And then, on Tuesday, well, you get to actually get some work done. Hope everyone's having a great morning. Does look like we have a few people here, so that is good. We're actually going to have some coffee today. I've been working on a big masterclass for you all. I've been grinding it out. It's been taking a lot of time, but I'm finally to the point of recording part 1, the fundamentals. So I have to make sure I'm with it today. I also have a few little business calls. Hello from Toronto, welcome. I'll be going to Montreal, actually. It's a little ways away from Toronto, but not too far. I'll be going there, I think, on the 28th. Sounds right. 28th of this month, they have a WPT 500. They have a $5,000 tournament as well, and a $10,000 tournament, and a $1,600 tournament. So I'm looking forward to that. Actually, they have Party Poker has a pretty cool promotion where if you buy in with your Party Poker Live dollars soon, you will essentially be entered into like a last longer bet or something like that, where if you win, you get a whole pile of money, like $50K or $100K. So if you know you're going to go play, you might as well sign up and get the full benefits. So, today, I wanted to talk about my first World Poker Tour win. I have the WPT Tournament of Champions jacket on, as you can see. They always give you jackets. Apparently I did win, 6 spoiler alert. I guess before we get to that, someone asked how I did in my tournament this weekend. I played in a private tournament in New Jersey, and I lost. I got it all in with 9s. I jammed with 9s for 12 big blinds. Guy on the button decided to call a 5-4 suited, and I was out. And then I played a cash game. Everybody started off wanting to play 1-2, but I got them to play 2-5. After a while, we were playing 5-10. I found myself all in for $2,500 pre-flop with Ace-King against Ace-6, and he made a 6. And then the day was over. So that was a lot of fun. So anyway, my first WPT win. I have to have a lot of notes today because I actually have a very bad memory. So, let's talk about it. Someone says, please talk about multi-day tournaments. Well, speaking of a multi-day tournament, coming into this World Poker Tour event, I had recently taken 5th in a World Poker Tour event for $320,000, which was a very nice score for me. Not life-changing, but a very nice score. And I'd also taken something like 27th in the LAPC. So in January, I took 5th in a WPT. Then in February, I took 27th or something like that. So I was making 2 deep runs. This is after a year when I was 21 of just bricking everything. I lost literally everything for the first year I played. I think I lost like $250,000, which was a pretty good chunk of my bankroll. Just came back, said 320K, LOL, not life change. Well, you have to understand, I'd already lost 250. So I basically got back to where I started. And in these, I was backed at the time, so I did not get all that money. And anyway, I got 320 for that, then like 30 or 40 or something like that for the LAPC. So going into this tournament, this was the $10,000 buy-in tournament at Mirage. World Poker Tour at this point is having lots of random $10,000 buy-in tournaments in Vegas. They were having a $10,000 at Mirage, one at Bellagio, one at Mandalay Bay. So they were really all over. I'm trying to remember the exact timing of this. This must have been right before the World Series of Poker. Like I said, my memory is no good. So anyway, I remember we were playing, bought in, just normal, no satellites or anything like that. And everything was going fine up until the end of day 1. I got it all in with, I think, Ace-King against 10s. Against Michael Binger, I think. Again, my memory is awful. And we got it all in. I lost the flip. I was down to about 5 big blinds going into day 2. So I'm down to 5 big blinds, which is pretty lame. So the next day was Sunday. And this was back when you could play online poker in America. And, Party Poker had a big tournament. And the other sites had big tournaments. And, there's lots of value in playing online. So I almost decided not to show up for day 2 of the World Poker Tour, which may sound crazy to some people. But if you think about it, if my equity playing online for that Sunday was, let's say, $5,000, and my equity with my $5,000 or my 5 big blind stack was, I don't know, maybe $2,000. Maybe it makes sense to skip the day 2 of the tournament. You give up $2,000 to potentially make 5. However, I also got to thinking, well, I can show up at the start of day 2, shoot my stack in as fast as I can, and then double up or go broke. So that's what I did. We were staying at a place at, what's the name of that street? I think it's called Fort Apache. Fort Apache? Desert Inn in Fort Apache. That sounds right. It's like a 25-minute ride away from the Strip, which was a mistake, by the way. If you're going to stay in Vegas for the summer, do not stay 25 minutes away from the casinos, because you'll have to drive back and forth every day, and that is rather brutal. I definitely recommend staying pretty close as you realistically can. So, people ask where I'm staying now. Now I currently stay usually at Palm's Place, which is right across the street from the Rio. It's not so expensive. It's decently nice. It's not the nicest place, but it's decently nice. And it's close to the Rio. You can walk to the Rio if you feel like it. So anyway, I drove to the casino, back to Mirage, which is a very nice casino, actually. They don't have much poker there anymore. It used to be like the poker capital of the world before Bellagio was built. And it's a nice place. They had a great buffet, or they have a great buffet still. They have a lot of fun restaurants. They have now, I think they still have the Beatles Cirque du Soleil show, which is a lot of fun. So give Mirage some love. It's a nice place. And anyway, I go there, we play, and I win every hand. I turn my 5 big blind stack into something like 80 big blinds. And that's pretty good. I won every hand. Nothing fancy about it. I won another WPT about a year later where I didn't have to win any all-ins throughout the whole tournament, and I just slowly grinded up. That was not the case in this tournament. Like I said, I was down to 5 big blinds, and when you're down to 5 big blinds, you simply must win some hands. So I showed up and won some hands. We won some flips, we got lucky some, we got unlucky some, and, that's pretty nice. We end up getting in the money, which is always good. I think they paid 27 people. I believe there were 300 people in the field. So think about poker today, right? Nowadays, they pay 15 or even 20% of the field sometimes. Back then, though, they did not do that. The tournaments were very top-heavy. So, for example, this tournament, there was 300 people in it. First place got $1 million for first, which was about 33% of the prize pool. Nowadays, if they ran a 300-person tournament, first would get maybe $650K, maybe $750K. So the tournaments were significantly more top-heavy back then, which induced people to play a much more aggressive strategy. That said, I don't think anyone really realized that the tournament was quote-unquote top-heavy, and I think a lot of people today don't actually realize how flat the payout structures are, which leads to people gambling way too much late in tournaments, which is why you see a lot of the best players in the world now playing quite tightly at final tables, just because there is so much value in moving up even just one payout spot. So always keep the prize structure in mind. So anyway, we're in the money. I wrote down some of the players who also got in the money. To be fair, if you take 300 of the best players in the world, inevitably there are going to be some good players there. We had Haralabos Voulgaris, who just got a job with the Mavericks, doing mathematical stuff. He was in the money. Alan Goring, a lot of people don't know him. He was one of the first people to make min raising popular. And I think he has 2 WPT titles, maybe, and a bunch of other final tables. I have no clue where he is now. We had Rene Angelil, who was married to Celine Dion. He is no longer with us. He was a very nice guy. We had John Friedberg, who's done a lot of stuff in technology. I don't know exactly what he does. I always liked him. He's probably way smarter than all the poker players. David the Dragon Pham, one of my favorite players. I love David Pham. He's very nice to me. He was one of the first people who just was relentlessly aggressive, like maniacal. He would go on big upswings, big downswings. He loved to gamble. He would go smoke his cigarettes every break. I think they called him the Dragon because he was always smoking. But he's a fun character, and he beat me to death every single time we played. It was brutal. It was like not even close. He ran me over, and I didn't know how to deal with aggression back then. Let's see. Then we had John DiAgostino, who had a baby a long time ago. Must have been 8 or 10 years ago at this point now. And he sort of stepped away from poker to deal with that, which is kind of what I'm doing. Then we had Shannon Shore, Uncle Shannon Shore, who's the best man in my wedding. We are great friends. Anyway, we kept on playing, got down to the final table, featuring myself, Corey Carroll, another online player, Daryl Dick, an absolute legend of online poker. You may not know him. We'll get to some Daryl Dick stories in a minute. Richard Kirsch, who I don't think was really around much back then, but he's been a regular on the Florida poker circuit. He plays lots and lots of tournaments and just crushes the games in Florida. He was one of the first people who figured out back when they made $1,000 buy-in tournaments in Florida that, oh, these are soft. I should probably play these. Then we had Amnon Filippi, who is another great poker player. He just joined us again on the circuit. David Viffer Pete. If you all remember David Viffer Pete, he trying to think. One hand I played with Viffer. Folds around to Viffer in the small blind. We're playing 25-50, no limit hold'em, with $20,000 stacks. That's about what I had. He always buys in for infinite. He would just open jam from the small blind for all of it. And he would say, if you see a free $50, why not take it? I don't think he quite realized that sometimes I'm going to get aces. But he would just jam for, solid 400 big blinds. That was always fun. And then Phil Ivey. A lot of people have heard of Phil Ivey. He's a very, very good poker player, to say the least. Great gambler, looks for the edges. Sometimes I try to take the edges away from him. So, those were the final 7. David Pete bubbled. I honestly don't remember how David Pete bubbled. I do remember, though, on the bubble, Phil Ivey was trying to run over the table. Phil Ivey was sitting on my left. And I called my friend Tom Dwan. I knew he was playing a lot against Phil Ivey online back in the day. And I said, Tom, what are we going to do against Phil about Phil 3-betting me every single hand? He said, well, obviously just 4-bet all in a lot. So, I started 4-betting all in a lot. I would raise, Phil Ivey would 3-bet, I would just rip it in for 40 or 50 big blinds, as you should. I make it 2.5, he makes it 7, I go all in for 40. And he folded a lot. And I don't exactly remember the chip stacks going into the final table, but I remember being in reasonable shape. So that was good. So David Viffer Pete loses somehow. And then we get down to the final 6. Sixth place must have been guaranteed something like 150K or 200K. Let's think about this. 1,000,000, 500, 250, 150, 100. Wow, more like 70K for 6th place. Brutal. You'd never get 70K for 6th place in a $10,000 tournament today with 300 people, but that's probably about what 7th place got, or 6th or 7th place got. Someone can look that up for me if they feel like it. So anyway, Amnon ended up busting in 6th place. And I believe he got it in against a 3-outer, I think, of Corey Carroll, I'm pretty sure, and Amnon lost. Amnon has actually been pretty unlucky at final tables. Every time I've played with him, he's a little bit on the tighter side. He's not running too many insane bluffs. I think people realize this. But at the same time, every time I watch him get it all in, he just loses. Brutal, huh? Anyway, he plays good poker. People pay him off. There's nothing wrong with playing a just solid, tight strategy if people keep paying you off. And people pay him off like crazy. Next we have Phil Ivey. I busted Phil Ivey. That was a lot of fun. In this hand that I busted Phil Ivey in, I'm trying to recall exactly how it went. But Phil Ivey raised. No, what happened? The dealer dealt the cards. Phil Ivey tells the dealer, keep the cards low, you're flashing them. After the cards are dealt. I say, well, this should probably be a misdeal. And then everybody's like, nah. I'm like, well, Phil Ivey maybe saw the cards. But whatever, they didn't give us a misdeal. Phil Ivey opens it up. I think I defended big blind with ace-8 offsuit. And the board came something like ace-8-2. All clubs. I have top 2 pair. We end up getting it all in for Phil Ivey's stack. It couldn't have been that deep. It must have been... I don't remember. We must have been like 40 big blinds deep or something like that. We get it all in, and Phil Ivey has a queen-high flush. He has like queen 4 of clubs, something just very, very bad to raise with. But for some reason, he decided to say, I can see the cards. I'm going to open with the queen 4 suited. Anyway, I made a full house. We got it all in. I drilled the 4 outs, and I won. Later, Richard Kirsch bust in 4th place. I don't remember how that went down. I do remember, though, being 3-handed with Corey Carroll and Daryl Dick. Now, I don't know much about Corey Carroll besides he was just a good online grinder, kind of like myself. I mean, I don't think anyone knew much about me besides I'd just done well recently since I started playing more live poker. But everybody knew Daryl Dick. Daryl Dick's name online was Gigabet. To put him in character a bit, he would always be in every single high-stakes sit-and-go that ran on Party Poker. He would play all the time, and he would always win. They actually ran 3 $15,000 buy-in sit-and-goes on Party Poker back in 2004, 2005, maybe 2006, something like that. And they would never run because, not many people have $15,000 to buy into a sit-and-go with. I didn't play them, and I was bankrolled for $2,000 games. Anyway, of the 3 they ran, Daryl Dick and Gigabet won 2 of them. And that's pretty sweet. They were also really top-heavy, by the way, which is one of the reasons I didn't play them, because I didn't know if I understood the payout structure. In those, first place got 100K, and then I think second got 30, and fourth got 20. So, yeah, that's 150. That makes sense. First, second, and third. So second got 30, third got 20. Right, there we go. So that's different than a regular sit-and-go structure, and I did not know how to attack that. I'm not going to buy in for $15,000 in a tournament structure that maybe I don't quite understand. I was always very risk-averse, for those who do not know. I like not going broke. Sounds like a good idea. So I used to play the $1,000 sit-and-goes with Daryl Dick, and he would post on the various internet forums. He was always somewhat vocal there, but you could always tell he wasn't discussing a ton about strategy. And then I think one day those started to change. So I remember one day he posted this thing about the Block Theorem. His Block Theorem. The Gigabet Block Theorem. Everyone thought he was crazy for doing this. Or even for even thinking about this. The gist of it is that say we're playing with 4 people at the table, right? 2 people have 10 big blinds. One guy has 12 big blinds. Another guy has 20 big blinds. Okay? 10, 12, 20. The logic here is that guy with 12 big blinds, if he doubles up, he has enough to cover the guy with 20 big blinds. But at the same time, if he had 24 or 20, it's essentially the same. Because he's either going to be... He has either enough to bust a guy or he doesn't. So the logic with this Gigabet Block Theorem is that the guy with 12 big blinds should be willing to gamble rather hard with that 2 big blinds. The block here is 10 big blinds, because there's guys with 10 big blinds, guys with 20 big blinds. The guy with 12 in the middle has 2 big blinds of gambling chips. You can extrapolate on this a bit, but maybe that's not the best example. Maybe more like 14 big blinds would be a better example, because then you could min-raise and then bet 2 big blinds on the flop. And if it failed, well, you still have the 10 big blind block to cover the short stacks, and if you double, you'll have a 20 big blind block to bust the big stack. So anyway, he published something about this that got a lot of attention. It makes a lot of sense if you think about it, because quite often in tournaments you do end up with like excess chips that do not matter a ton. However, there's also a lot of value in getting down to 4 big blinds if you double up a 10 big blind stack and then coming back, right? So you don't really want to give away those chips, because coming back from nothing does happen. I mean, in this tournament, I came back from 5 big blinds, right? So it does happen. Anyway, I would always try to chat with Gigabet after the sit-and-goes end. There would just be a chat box, right, where the players in the game could chat. And we would get heads up a lot in $1,000 sit-and-goes, and we would inevitably play, and he'd usually beat me. And I would sit there and try to talk strategy. One of the most important strategic concepts I got from him was the idea of keeping the bubble alive. A lot of people think that you want to get in the money as soon as possible so you guarantee yourself money, right? And Gigabet realized that was just flawed. So why do you not want to get in the money? When do you not want to get in the money? Well, you don't want to get in the money when you are the big stack pushing around the short stacks. So imagine I have 50 big blinds as the big stack, and then 3 other players have 15 big blinds each. 3 people get in the money, 4 people remain. So the guys with 15 big blinds each are all really incentivized, especially in a sit-and-go structure where there's a 20% payout jump. It's like a big payout jump to get in the money. You get 2 buy-ins back instead of 0. Those players are heavily incentivized to get in the money and not play to win. So what happens is now those 3 players with 15 big blinds all should be essentially blinding out until they get really good hands. And who are they blinding out to? Well, they're blinding out to the big stack. So the big stack goes from 50 big blinds to 60 big blinds to 65 big blinds to 70 big blinds. And while this is happening, those other players are slowly chipping down to like 5 big blinds each. So the big stack then gets in the money. Instead of having 50 big blinds getting in the money, he ends up with like 65 big blinds or 70 big blinds getting in the money most of the time. And that's quite a powerful strategy. So when you're the big stack, you do not want the bubble to end. You want the bubble to last indefinitely because the medium and short stacks are incentivized to play really tight. So Gigabet taught me that. We sat there and chatted for an hour one day as he explained this to stupid 18-year-old or 20-year-old Jonathan Little, however old I was. And I heard a lot from him. I have a very, very soft spot in my heart for Gigabet. Anyway, we were playing three-handed. I guess I should mention this too. I was always rather I lacked self-confidence as a kid. And the day before the final table, I was out at the valet waiting to get my car, and Daryl Dick comes there. This is the day before the final table. And I don't know how we got talking about this, but I guess I had talked about how I was unhappy with my play, or I was nervous about tomorrow, or something like that. And he said, "Oh, don't worry, you're playing great. Clearly, you're playing at a very high level. You're one of the best players here. Just don't worry about it. Just go there and play your game." And that was very nice of him. So anyway, we're three-handed with Daryl Dick and Corey Carroll. And I'm trying to remember exactly how this hand went down. I must have been the big stack here. And I think Corey Carroll was second in chips. So I remember I raised with Jack 8 suited. I think it was suited. Corey 3-bet, and I 4-bet all in. With Jack 8 suited, what are you doing? That's crazy. Well, it was one of these ICM spots where you really want to make the middle stack fold, right? And I remember when I jammed, I remember thinking that this is a very clear ICM spot, easy all in. He can't call because Daryl Dick is relatively short. And he thought for a while and said this is going to either be the best call ever or the worst call ever. And he decided to call with ace-5 offsuit. And the flop came like ace-5-5. So I remember thinking in my head, oh, jack, 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 jack. Because if I get 2 jacks, I win. But no jack came, and I was down to a short stack again. So that was rough, but somehow I ended up winning lots and lots of hands from there. I remember Daryl Dick busted somehow. We ended up getting heads up, and I got it all in with, I think, ace-2 against ace-8 of Corey Carroll. I somehow had the chip lead again. We must have not been playing that deep stack. We must have been playing only 30 or 40 big blinds deep whenever I lost that big Jack 8 hand. So we got it all in. I had ace-2 of spades, I think. It's funny, a lot of people say, oh, what hand did you win the tournament with? I have no clue. Honestly, I have no clue. I think it was ace-2 of spades, though. And I remember, I think a 2 came on the flop, and then another 2 came on the turn, and I won. That was nice. It's always nice to win. I didn't really think much about the money, though, which may sound crazy. And I think it's because I mentioned this yesterday when I talked about how I turned $50 into $300,000. I never really cared about the money. I cared about just running up my score. And this one actually gave me a little bit of financial mobility. I ended up buying a place in Vegas. I bought a little condo. I still have it, actually. It's available for rent right now. If someone wants to rent my little condo in Vegas, let me know. It's at Flamingo in Decatur, right near Bellagio. So that was good. They gave me a trophy. Oh, here, I'll just take this part. Here's the trophy they gave. Wow, okay. It says Mirage, World Poker Tour Showdown. $10,000. I'm the champion. How much is rent for that place? Rent is like, I think, $850 or $900 a month, something like that. It's a cheap place. Cheapish place. So anyway, they gave me this crystal trophy. It looks really weird if I look through it. And then retroactively, they gave me this WPT bracelet. It has a little diamond in it. They gave all the champions a WPT bracelet after the fact. I have 2 of them. Another one's up there somewhere. And that was it. That was my first WPT. Even after this championship, I don't really think I had confidence still. You may say, why? You final tabled one tournament, you won another. And I think it's because I realized that anyone can win any tournament. And I even understood this back in the day, right? I used to play 180-person sit-and-goes, and I'd win those all the time, right? And other people would win those all the time. It wasn't anything fancy. And I don't know. I think I have a problem with self-confidence. Eventually, I realized that what other people think about you does not really matter. And I don't think any amount of accolades can make you realize this. Because you either stop caring or you just always care intensely. And a lot of people sacrifice their own happiness chasing things that they think will make other people think more highly of them. So be careful with that. Be very careful with that. I think that gets a lot of people into trouble. So anyway, we won that. They gave me $1 million in chips. I've never seen $1 million in chips. It's actually not very many. It's just one rack of chips. It was 2 racks of chips. 2 racks of $5,000 chips. We went to the cage. I put it into my front money account. They sent it to Bellagio, where I was playing lots of poker at the time. And that was it. I managed to hold on to it for at least a little bit of time. I had currently the best accountant in Pensacola, Florida, who did my taxes then. And later I was told I paid way too much in taxes. I paid almost my full 30% or whatever it was, 40%. And that was a fishy play. So don't do that. So yeah, whoa, that was my first WPT win. If you all have any questions, feel free to type in. I'm happy to answer anything about World Poker Tour or anything else on your mind. Find them, throw away. Do you remember the hand I played against Liv Boree, where I was representing some sort of 5-8 nut hand? She flopped, I think, a set, and I kept betting. I think this was at some televised bounty tournament where I don't know what's happening. I had some obvious bluffing hand, and she had a set or something like that, and I kept bluffing, and she kept calling. Will Montreal be streamed? I think the final table will be. I honestly don't know, but I'm pretty sure it will be. Party Poker always seems to have a stream for all their major events. Let's see. Do I go into every single student's account and look at their answers to the homework or quizzes? For the homework questions at pokercoaching.com, they all submit their answers on the forum. And then whenever it's time for me to review their homework answers, I go into the forum and have a list of all the students' answers. And we go through and review all of those. But no, I don't go through and review their individual quiz scores or anything like that. What's my favorite WPT venue? That's a tough question. They mostly go to very nice places. And I don't really have a problem with any of the WPT venues. I'm pretty easy to please, really. As long as you take me somewhere decently nice, where they have good internet, they have good food, and good poker room. I don't really have much to complain about because I realize life is great. I mean, I think Aria is a very nice place, but I think if I had to pick where I like the best, it would be Bellagio, but back when you used to get to play in the Fontana Lounge. So it's something that I will never get again. The Fontana Lounge overlooked the Bellagio fountains. They had a nice bar and a bunch of restaurants right outside. It was beautiful. Is the poker dream dead? No. Have I been to MGM Grand Harbor? I have not. Talk about multi-day tournaments compared to one-day tournaments. I don't think it matters all that much. I think a lot of people get in their minds that poker is different if it's played online or played one day versus 2 day. What's really different is the fact that the structure is faster. So there's less skill involved in fast-paced tournaments compared to slower tournaments. Also, I suppose there's some stamina issue. Like you say, you're gonna have to play till 5 or 6 a.m. That certainly matters. I remember at Bellagio one time when I was playing in the Fontana Lounge. Actually, there was a $500 tournament. I didn't realize it was a one-day tournament. I mean, or maybe I just didn't care. And we played until 7 a.m. when I won the tournament. And I was playing against 2 older guys, and they were really tired. They were begging me to make a chop with them, and I did not make a chop because they were falling asleep at the table, and I was doing perfectly fine. So always make sure you know what you sign up for. If you know you're going to have to play till 5 a.m., you better be prepared to play till 5 a.m. because if you play against someone who is not afraid to sit there and grind it out and accept whatever variance comes, especially against 2 tired people, well, you're going to get demolished. And sometimes you demolish them and sometimes you don't. let's see. D&D says you have Secrets, a Professional Tournament Poker Volume 1, and Strategies for Beating Small Sites Poker Cash Games. All right. You have to play it at 3/4 speed because I talk really fast. You have Mastering on Kindle. You think you'd rather have it in paperback. I'm always a big fan of paperback poker books, honestly, because a lot of them have charts. For what it's worth, I listen to podcasts on either 2x speed or 1.5x speed when I listen to podcasts and audiobooks. And, yeah, I think that's it. What beef you have with Doug Polk? I have no beef with Doug Polk. I don't think I've ever even interacted with Doug Polk. Let's see. Do I prefer cash games or tournaments? Depends on the situation. I'd much rather play a very high-stakes, soft cash game than pretty much anything in the world. But if I had to pick between like grinding out a smaller, medium-stake game that's not so good or playing a tournament, sign me up for tournaments. What are some interesting books on the shelf behind me? The 4-Hour Body, right back here. It'll teach you to get in good shape. If you want to get in good shape quickly and efficiently and almost effortlessly, check out the 4-Hour Body. How does your strategy change 3 ways at a final table with 2 tired guys? You would tend to assume they would open up their range a bit and be more willing to gamble to get it over with. You start with less bluffing / not at all. That's an interesting question. Really, you just want to see what your opponents are doing wrong. Sometimes people will be falling asleep and will only play good hands, which is, I believe, what those 2 guys were doing. But you need to figure out whatever they're doing wrong. What are my thoughts on Upswing Poker? I sign up to basically all training sites. For those who do not know, that's just obvious market research for me. I thought it was rather basic. It was nothing too advanced and not a whole lot of content. But that said, they do a great job of marketing. And, usually... I was going to say, this is not true. Usually when people spend a lot of money on marketing, they may not spend it on developing their product. But that's not true. They clearly have spent money designing their product as well. But I thought it was quite basic, and you'd be much better off going to many of the other sites. Do I consider myself spiritual? No, not really. What does it mean when you say a game is solved, like Limit Hold'em? Basically, it means that a computer can play the game significantly better than any human will play it. And there is a defined game theory optimal strategy. Like, being a game theory optimal human, Uncle Eddie in the chat has figured out. He knows exactly how to be a perfect human. Also, in poker, imagine tic-tac-toe, right? If you take tic-tac-toe, literally no one will ever beat you. Right? You can't lose at tic-tac-toe. They will either tie or lose. Well, in Limit Hold'em, if you're playing against a robot, you will either tie or lose long term. There's actually a heads-up Limit Hold'em game at Bellagio and Aria, I suppose. I don't know if it's still there, actually. But it would let you see the opponent's cards each hand. It would charge you no rake, and you'd play heads-up Limit Hold'em. And they're happy to let you do that. They will tell you its strategy. You can see what it's doing. And you will see that you cannot win. Because it's playing into its mind perfect game theory optimal. Jarvie says, why have you taken a bite out of the apple? Because I got hungry. Let's see. Greg says, thanks for the comment. He put a hand up where he had to make a big fold on Share My Pair. Let's talk about this, actually. He raised from some position with 9-7. Actually, I don't remember the hand. Forget about this. What it amounts to is on the river, he had a bluff catcher. And the question is, do you value bet the river thinly with the good bluff catcher, 3 of a kind on a rather scary board, or you just check it back? And I think checking it back is fine. When there's a straight available, there's better nines for trips available. That said, value betting is okay if your opponent's a calling station. But if they raise you, you probably need to fold. And that's exactly what happened. What's in my green smoothie? Very simple, very easy. We have spinach, romaine lettuce, parsley, carrots, chia seeds, a little bit of blueberries, and water. And that's it. For professional poker players, how is it determined if they need to pay taxes? Talk to an accountant. My accountant is Teresa Fox. She helps almost exclusively poker players. and she will help you out. Teresa Fox. Let's see. First hand of the World Series event. We are all in with 65% equity. I guess even money pot odds. I definitely call. I sure don't fold. Don't be afraid to take edges. A lot of people are afraid. Do not be afraid to get your money in good. You have to understand, when people say, I'm going to pass up on the spot to get a better spot in the future, you got to understand, this is a really good spot. If you told me I'd get like 55% or 58% equity, I would probably fold. But even then, it's like closer than you think. It's hard to turn down just a giant chunk of equity getting given to you at the start of a tournament. You also have to understand that edge compounds. It's not like you're going to... Whenever you chip up, often you can use those chips to bully people who have in their mind they want to wait for a better spot. And that's going to allow you to run them over, whereas they're just going to sit there and keep blinding out waiting for a 90% favorite, which is never going to come. Okay. What else do we have to talk about? We have a few other bigger topics, so I guess we'll talk about those tomorrow. Let's see. We're starting a heck of a pile of cards here. I'm going to be able to write a book out of all these little poker, or little coffees one day. We currently have about 50 topics. Do I have any more Daryl Dick stories? I have one more Daryl Dick story, actually. Final Daryl Dick story is, this is before he knew me, besides from playing online. I went to Biloxi. Or no, was it Biloxi? It was Tunica. This is my very first poker trip. I drove from Pensacola, Florida to Tunica. My mom was afraid I'd get robbed, so she made me take all traveler's checks. So I had $10,000 in traveler's checks, $100 traveler's checks. I did not realize that you had to sign each one of them to get them cashed. So I had to go to the cage and sign my name on the back of traveler's checks 100 times. And that was not fun, but it was okay. Clearly I was a fish there. And anyway, we were playing some tournaments. I think I played a $500 tournament. I cashed in my first one. I thought this will be easy. Then I played a $1,000 satellite to get into the main event, which was a $10,000 tournament, a World Poker Tour tournament. And I forget the exact situation, but three-handed, I was really confident my opponent was going to make some call, and I folded pocket sevens. Then my opponent just like folded ace-king face up, and I'm like, oh my god. And then I ended up losing the satellite, so I lost $1,000 out of my $10,000. But after I cast my first term, I'm like, oh, if live poker is going to be easy. Because I had only played online. I just turned 21. And then I proceeded to not cash anything for the rest of the year. Whenever you think you're going to do well and crush it, that's when you really start getting crushed yourself. Don't be overconfident. Don't be cocky. So anyway, who is Daryl Dick? Daryl Dick is Gigabet, the king of the online sit-and-goes back in the day. And I learned a lot from him, and I love him. So anyway, I went to Gold Strike Casino, and there was some tournament going on, and I saw Daryl Dick playing. I'm like, oh my god, that's Daryl Dick. I was a fanboy, remember? And he was sitting there playing a tournament, and he had literally all of the anti-chips. Not from coloring up, because I watched him accumulate them all. He got moved to a table, he had like 3 stacks of green chips, the 25 chips. By the end of like 2 hours later, you can tell I was a fanboy because I sat and watched him play for 2 hours. He had like 20 stacks of green chips. He raised every single hand. People folded a lot. And he won all the green chips. I couldn't believe it. He had all of them. Also there I saw Phil Ivey and Chip Reese and Barry Greenstein. Oh, it was such a good time to be a fan. All the good players were hanging out in Tunica. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. That's my other Daryl Dick story. He had literally all of the green chips. I've never seen anyone actually accumulate all the green chips by themselves. I mean, you see people color up. There's a great picture of Scott Clements on Instagram, Twitter, the internet, whatever, and it has him with like 15 racks of black chips, and but that's from coloring up. This one was actually from him winning all of them. Am I going to Stones? Probably not to play this tournament series. They've not asked me. They have to ask me if they want me to go somewhere. When do you determine if I'm ready to end a session? Whenever I'm tired of playing. That's pretty much it. Let's see. Brian asked his question about taxes again. I already told you. Talk to Teresa Fox. Is the professional community trying to advocate for nationwide online poker? I don't know. There's one main poker advocacy group, I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but they are, I've had issues with them because they promote negativity. There's one guy in particular who donates a lot of money to them who is very actively against education, essentially. And that's not cool with me. So, I don't know. I don't keep up with it, which is kind of unfortunate, really, because obviously we'd all rather have online poker be legal in America. But at the same time, I guess I don't like it when people try to crap on the work of people who are trying to better the lives of other people. No, not the Venetian guy. A different guy. This is someone who has his own books. Alright, anyway, we're not going to get into that. No politics talk here. No, not Sheldon. Sheldon clearly does not back the make online poker legal advocacy group. He's probably actually very against them. You're less than a month away from online poker in Pennsylvania. Yeah, that's fantastic. I think it's a great thing. I always thought it would be good for poker players to get together and make some sort of, I'm not going to say a union, because I think unions are a silly idea. I'd say they're a silly idea. I don't actually know all the advocacy groups or advocacy things that unions have done, but it would be nice if poker players could get together and say, we have 100 pros, and we all agree that 80 of us will show up to your tournament every single time you have a tournament if you follow these guidelines. Poker Players Alliance went bankrupt a few months ago. I mean, probably not shocking. So anyway, let's say we have 80 pros who are all like good, well-known pros, and we all are going to agree that, you know, a decent chunk of us will show up to your tournaments if you agree to have a low rake, you agree to pay the dealers fairly, you agree to put players up somewhat cheaply, you know, you agree to have decent food. Basically, you make a good tournament. I don't know if that would actually do anything, because I think what would happen is a lot of casinos would just realize, yeah, we don't cater to the pros, screw them. And that would be the end of the day. Remember Mike Matusow for the longest time was saying he was going to try to get together a competing tournament series against the World Series of Poker that would run at some convention center there to compete with the World Series. And apparently never got anything going, or maybe it was just all talk, I'm not sure. But I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, you know, there are lots of things wrong and right with the World Series, to be fair. But it's hard to really impact a lot of change without spending a significant amount of time on your end for free. And if you know one thing about poker players, they either want to get paid up front or they want to be lazy. This is why I have a hard time finding good people to work with. That said, I have found the good people to work with. As you all see, I work with lots and lots of people. But a lot of poker players are lazy and don't want to work for free. And something like this poker advocacy group, or poker union, for lack of a better word, I think would be a neat thing. It'd also be hard to get poker players to all agree to go to a specific tournament, let's say. I don't know. I think it'd be neat, though. I think it's a neat concept. The question is, though, do amateur recreational players actually care if pros go to their tournament series? And I don't know. Certainly the fans would, but I don't know if the generic players actually care that much if Jonathan Little goes to their tournaments. It's an interesting question. You all care, because you're here. But you're not the people who I'm actually asking. I'm asking the generic players at the casinos. Like, I know when I go to Stone's Gambling Hall, right? They're very welcoming to pros. Some people there have literally no clue who I am, and some people there love me. So the question is, what is the proportion, right? Some people will care and some people won't care. And I don't really know. I don't feel like devoting a lot of my time of my life to develop a hypothesis if it actually matters. You know, now that I think about pros being locked in, they actually do have bounty tournaments at like for pros, like high stakes pros, at Bay 101 in San Jose, and also in Jacksonville at Best Bet there. Those are two very forward thinking casinos, and they're always trying to push the boundaries and see what new they can do. And I know at both the places, there are lots and lots of fans there who come to the casino to see the pros, right? And I think that's been reasonably successful. Do we think cash games will get better in the future? Most poker games get more difficult as time goes forward. Well, most games, not just poker games, most games get more difficult as time goes forward because people learn better strategies. Even the weaker players get better over time. That's just what happens in games. So, like with tic-tac-toe, for example, right? Some people it takes 2 games to figure out the optimal strategy. Some people it takes 100 games, but everybody figures it out eventually. And with poker, in theory, everyone figures it out eventually. All right, I think that's going to be it for today. Louis Vegas says, good morning. Well, good morning. You're 45 minutes late. It's time to go. I've drank almost all of my coffee. I have just a sip left. How do you deal with players who limp with premium hands like Ace-King? Stop raising them. I have a book. Strategies for beating small stakes poker cash games, or Mastering Small Stakes No Limit Hold'em. Either of those books. Against players like that, you have to figure out what their limping strategy is and adjust accordingly. Don't think you need to blindly raise all limpers. Someone actually asked me yesterday, what is my strategy against limpers? Should I just raise my best hands and limp my other hands? And the answer is no. Figure out their strategy and adjust. All right, I'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Also, this podcast is now available in the podcast stores. It's just called A Little Coffee, for those who do not know. And you can download it there to listen through your ears and not just through your eyes. Clearly, though, we try to do a little bit with our eyes. We have apples and trophies and fun. But I understand that everyone cannot watch this, so you can listen to it on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, the recording is always up on YouTube and Twitch. So, you can find it there if you miss it. Have a great day. Enjoy yourselves. Be nice to someone. Make the most of your time. Talk to you later.